Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Kohn. Janelle is off this evening. 6 months into a new effort to combat violent crime in Yellowstone County, it appears that we're headed in the right direction. Today, U.S. Attorney for Montana Kurt Alme outlines the progress of Project Safe Neighborhoods. We turn now to the newest member of the Q2 News team, Russ Riesinger. Russ, looks like this project is already making a difference.
Well, Jay, it seems to be. Since this renewed effort began last April, crimes such as murders, aggravated assaults, and robberies are down 1% below the average of the past 2 years. Now, 1% doesn't sound like much, but when you consider that back in the first quarter of 2018, before this project started, violent crimes have been up 29% over the past 2 years. So you can see it actually is quite significant. Federal, state, and local law enforcement all working together on Project Safe Neighborhoods. Results are encouraging. They've made more than 100 arrests in Yellowstone County alone, confiscated 52 firearms, and seized 160 pounds of meth with a street value of over $7 million. They say it's meth that's driving much of the violent crime here and across the rest of the state.
And the unanimous conclusion is that the primary cause is meth. And it's not only dealer-on-dealer violence, it's not only armed robberies of casinos and convenience stores to get money to purchase meth, but also there's a certain number of meth users who become violent.
Law enforcement officials say that meth is being brought to Montana from Mexico, and while progress is being shown in the fight against it, they say there is still a lot to be done.
You commit armed robbery, you push meth, or you commit a firearms offense, you will be pursued, you will be arrested, and you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Now, along with identifying and arresting the most violent criminals, another goal of Project Safe Neighborhoods is to develop a substance abuse and treatment strategy. The problem, obviously, still a big one, but law enforcement thinks that it is making a difference so far. Jay?
All right. Thank you, Russ. Welcome aboard. The Billings Police Department looking for more information about a missing Billings woman. Detectives now again reaching out to the public in hopes that someone knows something more about the disappearance of 49-year-old Laura Johnson. Police say this particular truck is of interest in Johnson's disappearance. The pickup is a 2012 white Chevrolet Silverado crew cab. Investigators have already identified the vehicle. They are looking for where it may have been seen on the dates in question. Johnson has not been seen since September 13th. Her family says they haven't seen or heard anything from her in weeks. Anyone with information regarding Laura Johnson is asked to contact Billings Police. The Miles City School District has filed a lawsuit of its own against the school's longtime athletic trainer, James Jensen, saying that his decades of sexual abuse harmed the district. The school district is already named in a civil suit in which it is accused of knowing about the alleged abuse but failed to take action. This lawsuit, the most recent one filed earlier this month, cites 19 anonymous male victims who claim they were abused while they were students at the school, dating back as far as the 1970s. Attorneys believe there could be hundreds of other victims. The lawsuit alleges Jensen used his position of trust to sexually abuse male students. The suit claims the abuse happened both on school grounds and at Jensen's home. Jensen was removed from his position at the school in 1998, but recently reached out to his victims on Facebook to apologize. He has not been criminally charged. The district's lawsuit alleges Jensen intentionally and fraudulently misled the school district in violation of his duty. It goes on to claim Jensen intentionally made false representations regarding parent complaints with the intent that the school district would rely on those statements. The complaint also says the district had no knowledge of Jensen's true activities. Turkish officials say they have proof that U.S. resident and Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was killed in the Saudi consulate. President Trump warns there will be consequences if the Saudi government ordered Khashoggi's death. Angelica Alvarez tonight has the latest for us on the investigation.
Turkish officials called off their search of Saudi Arabia's consul general's residence tonight after Saudi officials were unable to join. But police were finally able to search the Saudi consulate and say they found evidence that U.S. resident and Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was killed there. He was last seen entering the consulate 2 weeks ago. In an interview with the Associated Press, President Trump criticized the mounting global condemnation of Saudi Arabia, saying, quote, "Here we go again with your guilty until proven innocent." In a separate interview, he says Saudi Arabia's king and crown prince both deny any knowledge of what happened to Khashoggi.
And it depends whether or not the king or the crown prince knew about it, in my opinion. Number one, what happened, but whether or not they knew about it. If they knew about it, that would be bad.
CBS News has learned the Saudis are preparing a plan where they will say Khashoggi's death was the result of an interrogation gone wrong. The Washington Post published the passports of 7 men they say were part of the Saudi team that flew to Istanbul to confront Khashoggi. The New York Times reports at least one of the men is a frequent companion of the Crown Prince. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo traveled to Saudi Arabia Wednesday to meet with the Saudi Crown Prince and King. Pompeo called their conversations direct and candid. A Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, an ally of President Trump, says the prince has to go.
I know what I'm going to do. We're going to sanction the hell out of Saudi Arabia.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions says serious evaluation is being given to whether U.S. law enforcement officials will help with the investigation. Angelica Alvarez, CBS News, the White House.
Turkish officials told journalists that police were looking for traces of toxic materials in the Saudi consulate and that parts of that consulate had recently been painted. Turning to the weather scene tonight, Q2's Bob McGuire joining us now. Bob, from a summer full of drought, looks like things are changing for the positive for the Big Sky State.
Especially for Big Sky State. Everyone else in the western part of the country, they've had a pretty tough summer. And now, as we head into fall, it's not looking much better. Take a look at this. This is our drought monitor. And as you can see, down in the southwest, we've got all different kinds of drought, ranging anywhere from dry all the way up to exceptional drought, especially there in the Four Corner states. And look at that. It covers all of the Four Corner states. But if you go a little bit farther to the north, as you see up into Montana, we don't even have drought for much of the state. We have a little bit of drought, especially in the northwest corner of the state. We have some moderate to dry drought. Also, we have just some unusually dry to maybe some moderate drought in the northeast corner of the state. But here in the southern part of the state, where it's been wet most of the spring and summer, we haven't had it too bad. We are no longer officially in drought at this time. We'll have your weekend forecast coming up in a few minutes. Jay?
All right. Thank you, Bob. A waitress at a bar south of Busby got a generous tip, but it only got better when she used the money to buy a Montana Lottery scratch-off ticket. Leah Hunsalong turned her $50 tip into a $70,000 win. She was working at the Kirby Saloon when a patron tipped her. She decided to buy a scratch ticket with the money. She put the ticket away and decided to check it at the end of her shift, hoping to win a few bucks. Instead, it was more than a few. It was a $70,000 winner. She said she and her family are still planning on how to use that money. She calls her uncanny luck a blessing. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, with just 3 weeks to go until the election. We'll show you the latest fundraising numbers for the top races in Montana. Plus, coming up, this Montana-made product is to die for. We'll check out these wooden treasures in a moment. And in sports, Scott shows us why Billings golfer Brandon McIver couldn't have picked a better time for the round of his life.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.